In India, this city is considered the oldest and holiest. It is known by many names: Anandvan, the forest of bliss; Avimukta, the never forsaken; Rudravas, abode of Shiva; and Mahashamshan, the great cremation ground. Yes, I am talking about the luminous city of Kashi, better known today as Varanasi or Banaras. The city found its name from the two tributaries of Ganga which bordered the ancient city, Varana and Assi. Varanasi is a magnificent city rising from the western bank of the River Ganga, where the river takes a broad crescent sweep towards the north. The rays of the early morning sun strike the high banked face of this city spread across the river, which the Hindus call Kashi, the city of light. The temples and shrines, ashrams and pavilions that stretch along the river for over 3 miles are golden in the early morning. Long flights of stone steps called Ghats reaching the river bring thousands of worshippers down to the river to bathe at dawn. In the narrow lanes at the top of these steps moves the unceasing earthly drama of life and death. But at the river, there is a vision of transcendence and liberation, which Hindus call moksha. During the course of its 3000 years of history, Varanasi has witnessed the entire history of Indian civilization as it evolved in North India. From the ancient Aryan kingdoms and their rivalries, through the golden Mauryan and Gupta empires, to the years of Muslim and then British domination, the currents of times have passed through Varanasi. To understand Varanasi, we need to go further back in time. The decline of the Indus Valley civilization in the middle of the second millennium BCE coincided with the arrival of the Indo European pastoral population from the northwest to the Indian subcontinent. These ethno linguistic groups, commonly known as the Indo Aryans, spread across North India. When they entered India and mingled with the existing Indian society, it gave birth to a distinct culture which lasted the next millennium. This era was known as the Vedic period. The Vedic people had stronghold in the Kuru Panchal region encompassing the modern day states of Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, and parts of Uttar Pradesh. This Vedic society practiced codification of rites and sacrificial rituals, which subsequently contributed to the Hindu synthesis. But there were other groups of Indo Aryans around the lower Gangetic plains in present day Bihar, where a different school of thought based on asceticism developed. It emphasized on spiritual striving for liberation and is credited for later giving rise to the Buddhist and Jain religion. Why all this history is important in context of Varanasi is because it existed at the confluence of these two distinct societies and greatly impacted its development as an important religious city of India. A brief introduction to the city's timeline will depict the bigger picture of city's various historical layers. Evidences of habitation at Varanasi as old as 1000 BCE are found by the excavations at Rajghat near Varana Ganga confluence. 6th century BCE saw the end of the Vedic age and consolidation of power, leading to the formation of the 16 Mahajanapadas across India. These were oligarchic states formed by allegiance of local tribes. Kashi was one of the powerful Mahajanapada with Varanasi as its capital. Since the time of Buddha in 5th century, Kashi has been a pilgrim center for the Buddhists. It was on the outskirts of Kashi that the Buddha delivered his first discourse introducing the essence of his teachings. Several Jatakas recite the superiority of Kashi over other cities of India and speak highly of its prosperity, opulence, and intellectual wealth. Even in those distant days, the city was noted for its fine silks and brocades, for its handicrafts such as brassware, ivory goods, glass bangles, and wooden toys. The 1,000 years between first great Buddhist empire, that of the Mauryas in the 4th century BCE, and extending through the Gupta Empire to the 6th century AD, saw the emergence of theistic Hinduism. The age of Puranas, around the start of the Common Era, introduced into Hinduism many concepts that were not in the Vedic texts. It saw the rise to prominence of Shiva, Vishnu, Krishna, and the goddess, the emergence of the temple cult, and the development of the popular rites of puja and pilgrimage. And legends were woven around Shiva, the Ganga, and the Ghats. Between the Gupta dynasty in the 6th century to the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate and Muslim power, Varanasi was under the control of different Hindu kingdoms of North India. While there are no temples that survived intact from this time, it is clear from the ruins and sculptural remains found in Varanasi that this was a time for prolific architectural and sculptural achievement. The zenith of Kashi's prestige came during the Gahatwala kingdom, which rose to power in the Gangetic plains in the late 11th century and held sway for about 100 years. The Gahatwalas provided strong Hindu leadership and saw themselves as the protector of the Tirth or the holy pilgrimage. In 1206, with the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate, the entire Ganga Valley came under Muslim domination. It remained in Muslim hands for over 500 years. The history of this period is complicated, and the various Muslim dynasties which came to power were far from monolithic in their policies towards the sacred sites of Hindus. Certain sultans were less tolerant than others. Not until the Mughal Emperor Akbar ascended the throne did Hindu patrons again begin to build religious edifices. The Vishwanath temple was rebuilt for a third time at a third site. But his successor Aurangzeb was zealous in his disdain for the sacred sites of the Hindus. Some of the city's greatest temples, including Vishweshwara, Kirtivas, and Bindu Madhava, were raised during the reign of Aurangzeb, and their sites were sealed from Hindu access by the construction of mosques. After the disintegration of the Mughal Empire, Varanasi passed into the hands of a Hindu ruling family which retained the throne of Varanasi and the title of Kashi Raj ever since. In following decades, Varanasi became the recipient of the gratitude and wealth of the Marathas. Maratha rulers and patrons sponsored the rebuilding of some of the city's most important temples: Shiva temple of Vishwanath and Trilochan, the Devi temple of Annapurna, the Ganesh temple of Sakshi Vinayak, and the temple of Kal Bhairav. A number of ghats were also constructed under Maratha patronage.